Newsfile is brought to you in association with MTN, everywhere you go, and Bank of Africa, as strong as a group, as close as a partner.
Hello, a very good morning to you and welcome to Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis show. I am Samson Ladi Eyenini and I welcome you to the show. Yet an interesting edition. Now, I'll be asking three broad questions. First, does it seem an unlegislated sin to talk about lesbian gay rights in Ghana? Guess what? President Mills declared it will not be legalized. He paid over $2 million for a solution and was advised to wait for someone to take the issue up at the Supreme Court. President John Mahama just announced it's actually criminal. But why must Nana Oye-Letta, a woman touted as best suited for the Gender, Children and Social Protection ministerial job, suffer for insisting that you enjoy human rights because it's your birthright, even when you decide to be gay? I repeat, you enjoy human rights because it's your birthright, even when you decide to be gay. Now, the vetting. Is it really necessary? And is her approval a slap in the face of Ghanaians? Number 2, the mystery $80 million Ghanaian gold in Turkey. A case of a disgruntled opposition in a rush to fix the president with crime and debts in further attempts to undermine him, or a legitimate quest for answers to save a beloved country's image. Number 3, and very finally, further and better particulars. What animal is that facing vehement opposition at the Supreme Court in the Nanado and Co. petition seeking to remove John Mahama as president? But is the NPP legal team fishing for non-existent evidence to appease its followers in the ongoing case by amending its election fraud petition to increase the list of affected polling stations from the initial 4,000 plus to about 12,000 polling stations? We'll be right back after this break. You will join us with your views, your comments, and your questions. 1422 1760, and you can send us an email at newsfile@myjoyonline.com. We'll be right back.
Our petition has not changed in any way. It has only strengthened the basis of the petition, which is the numbers in dispute. And we find that as we've gone through the over 90% of pink sheets that we have in our possession, nearly 11,000 of those pink sheets expose difficulties for the numbers. So you are talking about over 46% of the valid votes cast and counted being doubtful.
If you amend, it calls for an amendment from us. We expect them to call 11,000 plus witnesses to verify the allegations they are making in their petition. They shouldn't be surprised if you call 11,000 witnesses to counter the 11,000 police stations that they are claiming.
You are a mother. If any of your son comes home after 18 with another man and his family, that they are coming to that pay dowry so that you accept that they marry, what will you do?
In terms of my son, in terms of that question of my son, that is personal and that is private. And I have a right to privacy. This is about my competence, my capacity, my experience, and my skills to be part of a team and to be part of a team to implement gender mainstreaming and social interventions in Ghana. Thank you.
Right. Honorable Agusi.
If you represent Ghana at any international forum and this matter comes up, how will you represent us? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, I believe I have made my position very clear. And what I have said is that the issue of whether or not Ghana should accept homosexuality is a societal issue. It's an issue that Ghana itself, as a state, should discuss, debate, and decide upon. Secondly, I have not said anywhere that I will promote homosexuality. What I have said and what I have done is to protect the human rights of everybody. This is what I have done. And so if I go to, be it international fora, be it the village grounds of Nungwa or Shama or Bukom, I will say that I protect the human rights of everybody in Ghana, because that is what I have read from the Constitution, and that is what I believe in. And I would leave the issue of whether or not homosexuality should be accepted to the society to decide upon.
Local media houses first published a story attributing it to a private Iranian news agency, MNA. The Ghanaian government was reported to be behind the gold transaction with Iran, a country with strict international trade restrictions. Spokesperson to the president, John Jinapo, was quick to deny the allegations.
Investigations are being carried out, and so when we get enough and adequate information, we would relay it to the people of Ghana. But I can confirm that the government of Ghana has not shipped any gold, neither has it transferred any gold.
Joy News checks reveal that contrary to local reports, the story was first published by the official Turkish news agency, Anatolia. The agency reported that the plane, Airbus A300, owned by a Turkish private company, left Accra for Iran but was forced to make an emergency landing at the Istanbul Ataturk airport to refuel and reshuffle personnel on 1st January. The plane was, however, detained because managers could not produce the necessary documents. John News called the Public Information Office of the Turkish news agency, and it turns out they also transcribed the story from the Associated Press. This is the Public Information Officer.
But we translated this news from APP for it's a translating news. We haven't got a journalist in Ghana, so you should get information from APP or AP. Two of them knows that much more than us, I think.
All our checks in Turkey confirm a plane flying from Ghana carrying cargo suspected to be gold was indeed detained by Turkish custom officials. What we cannot say for sure is whether Ghana was its originating country. A pro-Turkish government newspaper, Yeni Safak Daily, for instance, claims the plane originated from Algeria. It is not also clear if the 1.5 tons of gold was indeed Ghana's commitment to Iran. To add to the mystery, officials at the Kotoka International Airport have confirmed to Joy News they have no record of an Airbus A300 cargo plane flying from Ghana to Iran on or before the 1st of January. The Minerals Commission also has no record of any private or public transaction of the quantity of gold in question. The President has meanwhile ordered investigations that must resolve one central question: the identity, true origin and contents of the cargo plane detained in Turkey on the 1st of January.
When this came to our attention, I think the second week of January, we had a discussion with our minister then, and it was agreed we should check up to find out whatever information we can. So we first went to the Turkish embassy, since it was said the gold had been confiscated in Turkey. The Turkish embassy told us they had no idea about this. They were going to investigate. We went to the airline, and they also had no idea about this. But we didn't want to stop there, so we decided let's go to Bank of Ghana as well. Because to export anything, and gold included, from Ghana, you need to have filled a Form A4, which alone would authorize you to send anything out of the country. Customs would not entertain any export without that. And Bank of Ghana was completely oblivious of it. They had no idea about it. I said, well, maybe some of our gold buyers may have been involved. So we called up the major buyers, including PMMC, to find out whether they probably had a shipment which had faced this problem. And none of them had anything like that. So we then decided maybe let's even look at the trends of gold shipments reported to us to see if there have been any major deviations. Again, we looked at the trends. There was no change whatsoever compared to what had happened from the beginning of the year. So the only thing I can report is that having checked all these sources, we don't have any evidence that gold from Ghana, if indeed there was any such amount of gold. Talking about 1.5 metric tons of gold, that's a lot of gold, 1,500 kilos of gold. And we would have noticed it if it had gone out unofficially.
All right, you're welcome back. This is Newsfile on Joy 99.7 FM. And my guests, some of them are seated already in the studio. You'll get to be introduced to them shortly. And then the discussion will start. But as I already announced, your views are also important on the whole conversation. So let's know what you're thinking. 1422 1760. And you can also send an email to newsfile@myjoyonline.com, and I will share them with the rest of the world. Now, you're listening to us on Joy 99.7 FM here in Accra. You're listening to us on Love FM in Kumasi and over a dozen of affiliate stations across the country. You're watching us on your Joy News channel on Multi TV and also at myjoyonline.com, multi-TV world /streams. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanini. And if you're just joining us, I've been seeking, and that's what we're going to be doing really. I'm asking, does it seem an unlegislated sin to talk about lesbian gay rights in Ghana? Guess what? President Mills declared it will not be legalized. He paid over $2 million for a solution and was advised to wait for someone to take the issue up at the Supreme Court. President John Mahama just announced yesterday that it's really criminal. But why must Nana Oyelitha, a woman who is seen as best suited for the Gender, Children and Social Protection ministerial job, suffer for insisting that you are or you enjoy human rights because it is your birthright, even when you become gay? Touch wood. Now, we also be finding out the vetting. What's the value anyway? Is it really necessary? And is the approval of Nana Oyelitha against what you can reasonably say is the overwhelming public voice of dissent? Does it mean that the approval then amounts to a slap in the face of Ghanaians, represented by the clergy and even some of the MPs who did the vetting, who later told the whole country they were disappointed in her answers on the questions of gay? But I'm asking again, is it really the case that you don't understand the position of Nana Oyelitha, including the vetting committee? Secondly, the mystery $80 million Ghanaian gold in Turkey. A case of a disgruntled opposition in a rush to fix the president with crime and debts in further attempts to undermine him, or is a legitimate quest for answers to save a beloved country's image? And finally, I am asking, and the lawyers will join us on this show, further and better particulars. What animal is that? And it is facing such vehement opposition in the Supreme Court in the Nanado and Co. petition seeking to remove John Mahama as president. But is the NPP's legal team fishing for non-existent evidence to appease its followers in the ongoing case by amending its election fraud petition to increase the list of affected polling stations from the initial 4,000 plus to about 12,000 polling stations? Some of my guests are seated, as I announced to you earlier, and in the studio right now. And we have Kwabena Ejepong. He is former press secretary to President Kufuor. Ni Ama Akomfra is communications director of the CPP. Kojo Eduasare is former MP at Denta constituency. And also just getting ready to join us will be Dr. Suntim Tubiga. He is a lawyer and is with the PNC. We will also have other lawyers like John Ndebugri join us on the phone. Thank you very much once again and welcome to the show. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. A pleasure as usual.
All right. So, where do we start? Let me see. Start with you, Ni. The whole vetting process and the focus on gay and Nanaoye.
Firstly, let me say good morning to you, to your team here, and to your viewers and your listeners. I have to say that on this issue, I want to start with three questions. Do we put homosexuality above human rights in this country? That's the first question. The second question is homosexuality the biggest sexual challenge to our nation today? And the third question is, what should be the role of the clergy in our society on homosexuality or indeed any other issue affecting human beings? For me, I will put human rights above homosexuality. And that's why I think that in the whole of this issue concerning homosexuality, and I know you leave that, there's been a lot of hypocrisy. And there's a lot of knee-jerk reaction coming out there. There's been a frenzy, all whipped up hypocritically. Why do I say that? For many people, somebody like Nanoye, when you look at even all the ministerial appointments, is somebody who I personally am enthused about. Somebody who I think many Ghanaians, millions of Ghanaians should cherish as the sort of person we want in government.
Unfortunately, she has incurred their wrath because she's unable
let's explore.
By their understanding, she's unable to state categorically that the issue of lesbian-gay rights is not a private matter.
I think many, the frenzy that has been whipped up, many have joined the bandwagon and are not looking at the issue clearly, which is what we are here to explore. This is somebody who has championed human rights in this country. This is somebody who has championed justice, access by the poor to justice in this country. This is somebody who is championing the introduction of the Freedom of Information Bill. This is somebody who, even when at the 11th hour, if you like, at the point where she can be minister or not a minister, sticks to her principles. And I think that's the sort of politician we want in our politics. Somebody who's principled. But it's just somebody who is saying that I support lesbianism, I support homosexuality. Is this somebody who's saying I'm going to promote it? Is this somebody who says I have promoted
She was very clear. She says, I will not promote it.
So the argument out there is, why is she being, how has she felt such heckling or faced such hostility?
You think she was heckled?
Well,
they were hostile towards her.
Many
is that
people
the case?
are hostile, as if she is the inventor of homosexuality. This is something that is going on in our schools, and it's been going on for decades. hundreds of years, perhaps. Certainly since we had the boarding schools. And everybody who's been to boarding school in this country knows that it's going on. It's happening every day. And some of it in mission schools. And what have they done about it? And what are they doing about it? To seek to pile on the fears of a nation on one person, I think is unjustified. This is not even the biggest issue facing our country in terms of. There are many children, young girls, getting pregnant every single day. And who is it who's impregnating them? And what are people doing about it? Are they up in arms about teenage pregnancy, about pedophilia that's happening in this country? So I'm saying some of the biggest sexual challenges in this country is not even homosexuality. So let's begin to look at things in terms of the reality rather than jumping up and down.
I want us for now to focus on the vetting and her treatment.
Yes.
So she had almost 3 hours of grilling. Now, so we'll focus on that, but we'll shift the discussion to the question of lesbian gay rights proper and what the country's position should be.
Sodomy is a crime in this country.
That is so. Section 104 of the criminal. 104 of the criminal code.
The lawyer says 135.
Is guilty of unnatural
carnal knowledge.
Yeah. It's 105.
105. Is that so?
Yeah. But I agree with Professor Kenneth about that. Unlawful carnal knowledge. Unnatural carnal knowledge does not equate to sexual orientation. So that we do not want to whip up in this country a situation where you see somebody, you don't like the way they walk, don't like the way they talk. No, you feel that somehow.
I was saying that if we can take it this way,
so vetting.
We come back to that one proper. But the vetting, so you are saying that she was heckled, they were hostile towards her, and you felt that they spent so much time on gay,
on homosexuality and lesbian
rights.
When actually, what is her role? What is the ministry that she's seeking to head? Gender, children, social protection. How many questions were asked on social protection? Which is the way that many people in this country, many workers are disadvantaged in whether they have adequate pensions, whether they have adequate workers' rights, etc. All the issues for which she's been brought to try and tackle. And what were we asking about? We are acting as if we are back in the dark ages, where if you're suspected of being a witch, you're taken to the stake and burnt.
Just hold your thoughts briefly there. Let me come to Mr. Edward. You've been in Parliament before. I'm sure you've been part of this vetting committee before, have you? Okay. But does it come across to you that some of the members didn't really appear to understand her position?
Yeah, I agree to that. Good morning to your viewers and listeners. I personally, I think I've come out to bemoan the manner in which some of the members on the panel, or let's say the vetting committee, handled the lady. I think they allowed emotions to take them over.
But it's an emotional issue. This is a very vexed matter.
You see, and that is where when you are sitting on such a panel, you don't allow those emotions to capture you so much so that it envelopes everything you say. Because I felt very appalled. It started even with her CV. Of course, whenever there are challenges with the CV, it is all right that it is well scrutinized, and questions that are asked, one expects that whoever it is, the nominee should be able to explain the gray areas, and there were overlaps here and there. But it took, of course, but it took rather a longer time than was expected, and that also you could feel a charged atmosphere, But I like the way she composed herself.
Are you suggesting that some of the members were already biased or prejudiced towards her before she even started?
Well, I wouldn't want to give any credence to that, but of course we were hearing, at least we are within the system, and we could pick signals here and there. So somehow I was not so surprised as to why, because if you check, there was a petition that was sent by the clergy, which was not signed. It didn't take long, and then they brought a newer version which had been signed. So we realized
my understanding is that those petitioners were right there.
Wonderful. But the point I'm making is that, or just to buttress the point Nee just made, what we needed to know was what whether or not she has the competence to do the job for which she's been asked to do. For me, anybody's sexual orientation is an issue, okay? Because, like has been said, we have laws that abhor the practice of, what would we call it?
Sodomy.
Sodomy and all of that, yes. And I have personally, if you've heard me before, I have a strong, what will I say, position when it comes to that. I think it's some sickness that any human being, it's a special sickness that should be treated specially. If anybody decides to do what even animals will not want to do, or will not do, or they may not do, as long as
elsewhere, this comment will be taken very seriously as very offensive.
Yes, and that is how deep-seated Ghanaians are when it comes to such issues. You understand? So for me, I have heard Nanoye try to, times past, when Professor Mills came out to with this
emphatically
against Cameron's what do they call it? Some kind of I don't even know what to say. But
aid fines.
Trying to push things down our throat as a country. The president said we were a sovereign country and we will ensure that whatever grant or loans that will be given to us will not allow ourselves to have any strings attached to them. And he came out vehemently on this one. But subsequent to that, Nanoye also made some open statements and went ahead to, write articles in several newspapers and so on. So that background is there. But on this occasion, I was expecting that this issue will be discussed dispassionately. But you realize that her answers, people were expecting her to take a position on the issue before he goes ahead to explain how he's going to manage if such an issue comes to her table. And they are also thinking that with this social protection aspect of the ministry, such issues she'll be confronting such issues frequently. And with that disposition, how was she going to manage the ministry? So it was a very an opportunity for her to come out and let people, but she did so by saying that she will not promote, but will protect. And for me, that is the issue. We should be able to distinguish between promotion and protection.
Okay, Mr. Japon, there are those who say that her competence is undoubted, so it was taken for granted. But most important thing was to grill her on this particular issue. Do you agree with those who say the vetting committee spent an undue, unnecessary time on that, and then in the end, there appears to be an overwhelming constituency against her, her views, liberal views, and yet she's been approved, and so it was waste in the end.
Good morning to everyone, and to you as well, and your viewers. First and foremost, I think it's important that we recognize that we are Ghanaians, and we have some cultural beliefs. Of course, as Akonfa has said, we've all been to boarding school, we've heard of these things. Is this something that is culturally right? Is this something that sits right within the Ghanaian culture? And again, when she was put to the acid test about whether a son, she then retreated into saying that that is a private matter. Well, the judgments are out there. For me, what is the essence of vetting? That's the question we should be asking ourselves. And of course, if you look at our other jurisdictions, vetting basically, in my view, is to just test out of the candidate, the prospective minister or candidate, what her views or what her principles are. You know, I don't think, because the president makes a nomination based on certain qualities already. If the president doesn't believe in your competence or something like that sort, or your virtues, and I think it would be very right for the president to even nominate you in the first place. Of course, people have a baggage, they have a background, and even the presidency has to task the intelligence agencies to pick up information about you before the presidency will issue your name out to Parliament. So basically, what I think vetting should be about is a way for the candidate to come out in the open and tell the whole world how she intends to run her ministry and what her views are. Of course, in other countries, you are liberal or you are conservative. Those are issues. It does not mean you cannot occupy a position. I think, for me, there are two issues. You talked about the tension or the heat there because essentially she's not typical NDC politician. So maybe there were others who were not too happy that she found her way in there. So maybe that would have been an issue. My worry is, you see, we have a society that is built on political plurality and democracy. And we have a very strong civil society in this country these days. And my question, I've been searching through my mind, are the civil society actors now politicians as they were conducting their civil society activities or not? For me, that is where the trust is.
Why do you ask that question?
Because, you see, we should have principles here in our society. I'm not saying that people in civil society should not be given appointment, but you should be searching yourself. You know, because if you want to do politics, you come out in the open and do politics. I mean, there are two appointments in this thing that I found a bit problematic. Not because I'm not talking about the competence or anything, because that for me is a prerogative of the president.
I thought that was the answer to the question about all-inclusiveness. Go out there, look for the best, most competent Ghanaians, and put them in the right places to function.
What is a litmus test for that? I mean, those are things that people can say on political platforms.
Their record is with the public.
I'm talking about the fact that this is someone. I mean, we've had a situation where a moderator of TV presidential debate, a moderator who's supposed to be neutral, okay, politically neutral, within 3 weeks after the election, is given a major cabinet position. You begin to work yourself backwards and wonder, because things happen. I was part of the team that prepared Nanado for this debate, and the brief that we were given, questions that we were given, when we got to the floor, there were 3 questions that were not part of the brief. But you could see the president was adequately briefed. He was reading from the notes. So we were very upset, you know. We were very upset. I'm not talking about a crime. I'm talking about principles. Okay? And as a people, we should guard principles. If you are a gender activist or civil society activist, and that is what you've espoused all this while, leaving that and coming to take a political position, for me, is a major decision. Especially as when you are, for instance, if you are part of the CDD or the IEA, and you have been presenting a certain form. That is why we even say, the clergy should not be part of politics, or so and so, or chiefs should not be part of politics. So for me, I think that is where the worry is. For me, that is where the worry is. I'm sure within the NDC themselves, if Honorable Eduasare will be honest with that, there are some who are uncomfortable that why we didn't have enough material in our midst to bring somebody from civil society to do this job. This is a political position. My views may be very different from her with regard to this homosexuality thing. But even if it is a criminal act, criminals have rights. So that one, I don't think I'll fault her for that. You understand? It just goes to show you, but maybe, I don't know, I don't want to be too cynical. There's an attempt to deviate from what are the main issues in the country. So you can see this was something about nothing.
Okay.
That's what I want to say. This was something about nothing. For me, the main issue is whether a civil society actor has transitioned to become a politician? And those are the questions they should have asked her.
So that
whether
if a
she's
civil
comfortable
society
with
actor
that
is doing very well in our society, and they're supposed to contribute to the good of the country, if they are invited to participate in it at the level of government, they should decline.
I'm not saying they should decline. They should be honest about it and say that, look, I used to be so and so, now I want to come into politics.
All right,
and do that. So that for me, is the real issue. Because other than that, because there have been consistent issues of civil society actors whose views, although they carry the cloth of neutrality, whose views in the past have been a bit partisan.
I see.
But because they come under civil society, you look at it that way. I think that the civil society in this country is absolutely vital.
Let me bring in
we should not politicize it.
All right.
If they want to get into politics, then let's be clear.
All right. Let me bring in Dr. Something Tubiga briefly on this one also. I want to read for you the findings and observations of the Constitution Review Commission. Now, in page 656 of its 500-page document, it writes that the Commission finds that during its consultations, the overwhelming number of submissions received on the subject, that's the subject of lesbian and gay rights, was in favor of the non-recognition of the right to the sexual orientation for homosexuals. And after Nana Oye was announced, the issue came up very strongly. You had groups that protested. You had the clergy. You had very renowned men of God come out to say that this is a wrong choice. You have the ministers who were, the MPs who were doing the vetting themselves, demonstrate it on the floor, and after the vetting come to tell the public that we are not satisfied with her answers on that question. And yet, she was approved.
Well, you see, I think that, good morning to everybody there. I think that there is a certain duty in our very civil society where people with substantial knowledge ought to discuss certain issues so that our public can be enriched and be informed. I think what we have here represents a situation where we have a continuing effort or continuing duty to discuss with everybody major social values and issues with respect to the law in particular, so that we can appreciate that there's one theme. There is centrality of the law, and that we as private elements, private persons in society may have certain values, but as we approach the law, our personal beliefs and values diminishes, and the law takes over. We cannot have a situation where at the center of our legal system, where the law provides, we go in there and be having conflict again. You may have different positions.
The law is supposed to espouse our values, our,
the law is already in place.
Aspirations,
right.
And our culture. It must mirror that one as well.
Exactly. If you take our traditions, if you take our customs, if you take our religious beliefs, and then you drive them towards the law, as they approach the law, they vanish. That's the central theme we don't seem to understand. That as soon as we hit the law, what you believe in, and what I believe in, and what they believe in is really irrelevant. We now look toward the answers from the law. What does the law say? Whatever the law says, or each and every one of us should then begin to appreciate the commonality of the definition and function of the law. And that's what we as civil society have never been able to appreciate. I'm saying this because if you look at the old Bible, in the Bible itself, Jesus himself made it clear. What belongs to Caesar, give to Caesar.
Doc, what you're doing now is to go into the subject itself, which we will look at. I'm asking about the vetting.
Exactly.
And the outcome of the vetting.
Yes. And I'm saying the vetting
put against what is seen to be an overwhelming public, dissent.
Yes. And I'm saying that if you look at this reason why there's a public outcry or a public protest, it's because people do not respect the centrality of the law. If they do respect the centrality of the law, they would act in conformity with the law. If you believe that I am a Catholic, And if the Pope, I believe, if the Pope was sworn in as the president of Ghana, or is a member of the bar, as I am, he would have no right but to enforce the law as it is. He may have personal beliefs about his religious beliefs as the Pope of the Catholic Church. But when it comes to the law of the country, the president would be able to. And go on and look at President Obama. President Obama of the United States is obligated to enforce the law as it is. He is sending people to go to Afghanistan, to go to Iraq, and to other places to fight for those people's rights to choose. He is sending these boys to go and fight those countries to make sure those people have the right to choose, to be independent. And yet, his own firemen, his own fighters, do not have the right to choose. That's why he opted for the gay rights. Because it would be immoral, hypocritical for him to say, I am enforcing the law, go and fight for people to have the right to choose, but you yourself do not have the right to choose. This is where we are in this country. We have our boys engaging in international fights, including homosexuals, including gays, including all kinds of people. And they are fighting for one simple principle: independence of the individual values, independence of institutions.
You're talking about a lack of a certain understanding when you gravitate towards the law.
That's right. And that's why
where we are now.
Right.
And that is the result we are discussing.
Exactly.
So, for you, was the vetting really necessary?
Oh, yes. Vetting is a public political exercise. Public political exercise. And there are two key considerations, two elements: the public nature of it and the political nature of it. It's about us. It's about our rights. It's about our privileges. Therefore, it must be done in the open. So that was necessary, so that we can get to do the things we are doing. But it does not mean that the protesting and the disagreements should deviate or take us away from what we are legally obligated to do as a country. It shouldn't. It should allow us to reflect on how far we are close to the centrality of the law and move towards it. Because it tells us there's still a difference between what people believe and what the law says.
When we invite petitions, what are they supposed to do?
The petitions are supposed to help the interviewers gauge the intensity or acceptance of the public on a specific issue. And then, but it does not mean the parliamentarians should divorce themselves of their duties as parliamentarians. Just like you can write anything about a case before the court. It doesn't mean that the court...
Mr. Konfa, do you hear Dr. Tuguba say that, Tubiga say that, the petitions should not affect whatever goes on?
I think, talking about vetting, certainly in many countries, the vetters invite public views, if you like. They are inviting whether you have anything against the person, what your views are about the person, whether you have anything negative, etc. All of that is normal. And to the extent that the public have issues, that can be brought to the table. And it was brought to the table. I think even though the concerned clergy did not sign their whatever they sent in, I think the chairman of the committee agreed that the issues raised...
Later they brought the signed ones, and so they used them. They relied on them.
Still be, and I think it's perfectly okay. But the vetters cannot focus on one issue to the exclusivity of... because after all...
My question is, and I want to have your opinion. You're saying that it is okay to invite the petitions, but they should not be taken into consideration.
No, I think no, that's not what anybody... No, absolutely not. It has been taken into consideration. The questions have been asked, but it cannot be just that. I mean, they are there, as Dr. Tobiga has said, they are there, they have a parliamentary duty.
Yes, right.
And what is that duty? And it goes to what my brother has said earlier.
It's to represent their constituents.
To tease out the competency, the suitability of the person to carry out their functions in a particular ministry. So, yes, you can have petitions. Somebody can come and ask that, I don't like that person because every morning I see her driving recklessly. It may be an issue.
Okay.
But we still need to understand whether she can do the job as a gender, children's, social protection minister.
Okay. Now, Comrade, there are those who are suggesting that the action of the NPs does not tell that they act in representative capacity of their constituent. Because if it did, then the Constitution Review Commission's work should provide a solution for them to guide the process. And also, what has happened in the course of the last few weeks should have guided what they did. And to the extent that they themselves, some of them, came publicly to say that they were not satisfied with her answers in respect of that question, then they didn't have any business passing her.
Well, that is where it is. I mean, at the end of the day, the role of the parliamentarians is to capture the mood of the people. And part of the mood of the people is all these public petitions. You are put there to run a ministry. Of course, we don't want rogues running our ministry. So many issues are important. So I'm sure before even a president makes an appointment, certain checks are made. Of course, the fact that even someone has had a criminal, in quote, record before does not prevent that in future, 10, 6, something years ahead of time, they haven't reformed enough to be able to take public positions. I don't think anywhere in the world. I mean, there have been prime ministers who've gone to jail before, you know, who have become prime ministers of countries and have become successful prime ministers. So I think it's not cast in concrete, you know. And I do believe, yes, you put the nominee there. One, the nominee should be able to explain her policy positions. And in fact, where there are conflicts, is an opportunity for the person to learn from all these public petitions that, look, if there are conflicts with my own personal view, this is how the mood of the people can be captured. And again, as Dr. Tobiga said, that yes, I may have a personal inclination towards this or not, but this is what the law says. Okay. And once I swear in as minister, I have to respect the law, I have to respect the mood of the people, and not my own persona or my personal values on a particular issue.
That's why I say, the fundamental question is, do we put human rights, which is captured in the Constitution and the law, above homosexuality? Which is also above or a sexual orientation.
Even though it remains speculative, unconfirmed, then what do we say about the claims that the party or big people in the party had to crack the whip everybody into line, including those MPs who were vetting, who disagreed to approving my nomination?
That question perhaps maybe should be put to the president.
But I need to, the moderator, I think you're also not, I think there's an issue with what the issue you're raising. You said, under from the review, Constitutional Review Committee,
that is so.
They said there was evidence that, overwhelming evidence, that people were against it. Two issues. See, when you talk like that, one thing the public may not, unless you go on to educate the people that those recommendations were not accepted as such and made into law.
These are findings and observations.
Yes, I say made into law.
Exactly.
Yes,
but they made a recommendation.
Yes, you have to alert
the matter ought to be left for the Supreme Court to determine if it comes up.
The Supreme Court has not yet determined anything. Therefore, you all go on to explain to the public. Otherwise, some people will take the recommendations as if they were the national position. They are not there yet. So it is important for media and other leaders in society to keep on educating our people on these issues.
Okay.
So that
you pay a group of people, you spent an amount of over $2 million to ask them to find you a solution. And they come to tell you that this is our observation.
Right.
And you say that for as long as that observation is not reduced into law, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, see, if you look at our Constitution, it's very simple. It states that the top law is this Constitution.
That is so.
Second, our laws made under the authority of this Constitution. Third, our laws existing at the time that this Constitution was made and made effective. Customs or common law. This is the hierarchy, of our laws.
Okay.
So citizens are obligated to obey the laws as stipulated here, not opinions. No, not sentiments.
Opinions we pay for.
These
are opinions we pay for. It's a lot of money.
It's part of our duty as a country to perfect ourselves.
Okay. Now, just hold it briefly, and let me go onto the phone lines and speak to John in Debugre. He's a lawyer, and he's also with the NPP. Thank you very much for joining us on Newsfile.
It's a pleasure.
All right. What are your thoughts, first of all, of the vetting process and the outcome? And still we have the clergy group saying they will continue with their protest. They think that the process is not ended because it is the president who will swear the ministers in. And they have made their position clear. She should not be sworn in.
Well, I understand from the proceedings and the discourse so far that Madam Oyelita was being considered for the position of Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection. So I believe that the vetting was to find out how capable she will be in handling matters connected with this ministry.
Yes, sir.
Also to look through her profile, her CV, to determine what qualifications she has that may assist her to perform the functions of that office. So I don't believe that the result of the vetting should hang on to one particular question. I mean, it couldn't be so, unless the question is technical. What do I mean by the question being technical? I'll just take us back a few years and give you an example. Dr. Spiogabra, he was then Mr. Spiogabra, was brought back from the United States to assume the office of Minister of Information under the first Rawlings regime. I believe, either first or second, one of the Rawlings regimes. He was very well qualified. But then, at the tail end of the vetting, he was asked this question whether he was a registered voter. Unfortunately, he had not registered, and that just disqualified him because you cannot be a member of parliament if you are not registered, and you cannot be a minister of state if you are not qualified to be a member of parliament. So this is the sort of question that will just knock a person out. But as to your general understanding or your general attitude to matters, I don't think those will make it possible for one particular question to disqualify a person. Why would the madam be disqualified just because she has a certain sympathetic attitude towards people of a certain sexual orientation? Will it mean that if she goes to sit in that ministry, as she is now going to sit there, she can just on her own pass a law and legalize homosexuality? Right. No. So I don't really see the point. I think that it involves a lot of quibbling, with the greatest respect. I think that we could approach the matter more seriously. In any case, what did the lady say? The lady says, I will not promote homosexuality, but I will protect the rights of all. She is supposed to go there and protect gender people, protect children, and protect social rights. So she says, I will protect everybody. For example, if I'm passing by and I find that they have put a lorry tie around somebody's neck and about to set the person on fire because of having been suspected of having a certain sexual orientation, I will step in and insist that that person should be taken through due process.
Okay.
I don't see the problem there.
Okay, so
the second point she makes is that there is no law against homosexuality. I have heard somebody say that the law against homosexuality is clear. There is nothing like that.
That's supposed to be. It's supposed to be the president's position emanating from the criminal offences and other the Criminal and Other Offences Act 1960, which says in section 104, as you know very well, that unnatural carnal knowledge is crime. And the Constitution Review Commission also looked at this particular issue, and yet in the end, left the matter for the Supreme Court to determine. But the president's position is that that is the law. It should catch homosexuals.
Well, I would be greater even though I respect the president and I respect everybody's views. Unfortunately, the president is not the right person to interpret the law. And so I'm afraid his spokesperson misinterpreted the law.
His spokesperson is also a lawyer.
Yes, he is a lawyer. It doesn't matter. I'm also a lawyer. So he has his view and I have my view. So it is only the court that will determine for us. But I think that if you look at the section you are talking about, you will have no difficulty. In fact, it's subsection 2 of that section 104 you are talking about, which defines unnatural carnal knowledge. It says unnatural carnal knowledge is sexual intercourse with a person in an unnatural manner or with an animal. And what is the meaning of sexual intercourse? The Supreme Court has held, and I'm looking for the authority. It involved a police officer who ingratiated himself with some girl or something. The Supreme Court has held authoritatively that sexual intercourse means penetrating with the penis. Sexual intercourse means penetrating with the penis. Now, we are using the words so liberally that we confuse ourselves. Homosexuality or homosexuals is the generic term for both female and male. Males are gays. Male homosexuals are called gays. Female homosexuals are called lesbians. Having regard to the fact that sexual intercourse involves penetration with the penis, can lesbians be charged under this section? Females don't have the penis, so they cannot penetrate.
Yes, all right, the Constitution Review Commission acknowledged this particular point, and yet we have a position that we are told that is the president's position now, that this is what is the law.
I am saying that if my sister or my two sisters are charged before the criminal court for lesbianism under this section, I will go and defend, and the president too will send his representative, the police or the attorney general, and I'm telling you that I will roundly defeat them. Notwithstanding that that's the president's position. The president's position does not constitute the law. The law, as was being expatiated by Dr. Tobuga a few moments ago, has been defined. You have the Constitution, you have acts made under the Constitution, you have existing law, you have custom, you have equity, rules of equity, and so on. So I am saying that people who are on, if the president says homosexuality has been criminalized, he should produce the law that criminalizes it. And I'm saying that if you are relying on Section 104, I've given you a very concrete example where lesbians cannot commit sexual intercourse with each other. So they cannot be brought under this section. So there is no law. Okay. In any case, if you take your wife, if your husband has sex with his wife through the anus, you come under Section 104. It's on carnal natural knowledge. But they are not homosexuals. So that law doesn't deal with homosexuals. It deals only with unnatural carnal knowledge or having carnal knowledge with an animal. So anyway, I think that the lady is eminently qualified to occupy that position. And that sympathetic attitude she has is in conformity with the position she's going to occupy. And the president should not be persuaded to change it. If I had time, I would have commented on how religion can interfere with progress, like Mendel and genetics. Gregory Mendel they said he should be put to death for saying that there's something like a gene that leads to a transmission of likeness from parent to child. Now, if that thing had been stopped, we wouldn't be benefiting from genetic science today. And Kwabena Japan is sitting there. He knows that we benefit a lot from genetics in terms of medicine. So we appreciate people's religious beliefs. But please, as Dr. Toga is saying, we are dealing with law, not with people's personal positions. And people say that Ghanaians are against. How many Ghanaians have you interviewed and they are against? Ghanaians are against. You are against, not Ghanaians.
All right.
I'm afraid that these are my candid views.
Okay. Thank you very much for your intervention. We should return to you when we get back to the petition at the Supreme Court. We'll be looking at matters regarding that as well.
Very well. Very well.
So that's John Ndebugri there on the line.
You know, this whether you call it gay rights lobby, it's a very strong lobby around the world. I mean, I was thinking that maybe the parliamentarians would have asked her, because she has been an advocate of rights for them, whether they were getting things like funding, or they were, those are the things that really, as a parliamentarian, or those are things that we needed to find out, whether her NGO has had funding in the past.
What do you know?
I don't know. I'm saying those are the kinds of questions. If you really, those are the significant questions that you should be asking. Whether she's been influenced by the gay lobby from outside or from here, those are the particular things that they could have asked.
For example, if they funded her group and the funding was for what she stands for, what's wrong with that?
Well, that may affect her role as a minister.
How?
It has. Because then you have been funded by a certain group.
For an organization.
Lobbying.
Funded to do what you say is not wrong.
Yes, but then when you become a minister, you talked about respecting the law.
Right.
Okay? And then respecting the beliefs of our people. Okay? And going according to the law. If you are biased as a result of the funding that you've received in the past, and your reliance on a certain lobby group, that can affect your judgment. So that would have been a legitimate question to ask. It did not happen. I'm saying that those are the types of questions I was expecting the MPs to ask, those testing questions. As for her views or her liberal preferences, everybody knows that. So for me to go and repeat those questions to her...
And really, the question also that I've been asking myself is, what is our fear? I mean, those who are against her, what is our fear? That she single-handedly can legalize homosexuality or what?
Well, I think Mr. Ndebugri has already answered that question. It's not possible for Nana Oyelita, as minister of whatever, pass a law, because the processes the law has to go through to get passed does not depend on her. Okay, yes, she could promote it through the ministry, but there are people who are going to assist her to put it, like to even draft it. It will go through the Attorney General's office. It will go through cabinet to Parliament. The processes cannot or does not suit cannot suit her whims and caprices alone as a person. So for me, that is something for which reason I will want to understand why the clergy will take the stance they have taken. Now they are getting personal, I must be honest with you. It is as if they have something against the person and not the issues we are discussing.
They are supposed to watch the moral fiber of this.
You see, and for me, that is the problem. You are wading into my area where I have a lot of beef to pick with the clergy. We are talking about homosexuals today.
But I think that
let me finish his point and then I'll
today, the kinds of things that are happening sexually. I was listening to Mr. Ndebugri talking about the lesbians. They don't penetrate. I beg to differ. Today they penetrate.
No, but by law, as he defines.
Wait a moment.
As defined by law. The law refers to
listen,
the penis.
Can you, yes, there are toy penises which they strap.
No, the Supreme Court.
All right, sorry, that's not radio friendly this afternoon.
Of course, it has become necessary to discuss this. You see, let's be pragmatic about issues that are happening. If you are talking about morals, the church, I think, has shirked its responsibility to the extent that a lot of things are happening that either they are aware and they are not talking about it, or they don't seem to know what is happening. Because look, these things called threesomes, foursomes, 2 ladies, 2 men, they finish, they swap, and all of these things are happening here, right now, and with us. So I don't want the whole thing to seem as if Nana Oyelita is the conduit to homosexuality, or whether or not she's made a minister is the issue.
Okay.
Next to us, we have people who are working in the banks, who are owning big corporations and companies, or heads of whatever thing you can talk. They are involved.
Okay.
So are we looking at the issue, or we are just looking for a victim, someone we can hang an issue like this around?
The question I wanted to add, you see, that is why we have the appointing authority. You see, in other jurisdictions, a president may come in and say, okay, I have conservative values or I have liberal values, so when I'm appointing a justice to the Supreme Court, I will appoint a liberal justice or a conservative one. So it's no. The problem is, I would have thought that if, considering what has happened in the last 12 months, either the president is trying to show his own liberal values, because then you appoint someone who has similar values. You understand? And that's why I find it a bit controversial. So, I mean, if I were in his shoes, maybe you appoint somebody else so that you don't generate all the controversy. The facts are different.
So like Omar is saying, it sounds like a contradiction, especially when you hear the Minister for Information come to state what is the president's view, which is that for him, the law regulating, criminalizing unnatural carnal knowledge extends, and it is so. And again, if you look at that against the recommendation by the Constitution Review Commission and government's white paper, and I read the white paper, page 45, it says that recognition of lesbian and gay rights. It says that government has taken note of the recommendation of the Constitution Review Commission that the legality or otherwise of homosexuality be decided by the Supreme Court if the matter comes before the court. How do you reconcile that with the position we are now told?
Okay, this is exactly what I was trying to say. First of all, I want to respond to my friend's Dr. Ajipon's position that it may demonstrate. If you are appointing people, it may reflect you or the president, whether you are coming from as a liberal-minded president or a conservative-minded president. So now you are dealing with Jimmy Carter or Ronald Reagan, so to speak. It shouldn't be that way. You see, our presidents are executive presidents. What that means in law and in practice is that he caters for everybody. The vulnerable, the religious, the unreligious, the homosexuals, all kinds of people. That is what our function and duty of our president is. It does not have to be reflecting on what he himself believes in, or whether he's a conservative or he's a liberal. He must also understand that he has taken oath to protect everybody, every shade of character.
But it's not wrong that he's gone a step further to tell you. For example, there had been attempts in some sections of the media to link him to Andrew Solomon, the international gay activist. And he comes clear to say, look, I have no business with this man. Yes, he was the MC at the launch of my book in the US. Yes, he paid $20,000 for a copy, and claims that he's funded my campaign are not true. On the day after that event, I have not had any contact with him whatsoever. And I'm going further to state to you that my position on this matter is that it is criminal.
Oh, yes. He's simply restating the law. He's not gone beyond anything. He is telling you and every Ghanaian that as a president, I'm going by the law. Whatever the law says is what I have to go by.
But as Ndebugri told us, and you also know that,
yes,
that position cannot be exactly correct. And the Constitution Review Commission, an expert, and all its work that it did, comes to the conclusion that it cannot be the case. Because where will lesbians fall?
Okay, the Constitution Review Committee is like you and me.
No, but you have experts.
I know. But they are not the people interpreting the law. You see, understand that very clearly.
You expect that the product they bring will be exactly, and that it will have gone through a lot of refining and all that.
They are saying simply this, that yes, there is a divergence of opinion about a certain subject matter, but what the true position is about this divergence of opinion with respect to the law is left to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, but they stated
that's what they say.
But they stated that as far as that section is concerned, it does not include lesbians.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Again, you're going back to the same thing. They are not the people who interpret the law. And they are not, I hope they are not taking the role of the Supreme Court now to interpret the law, or any judge to interpret the law. They are not saying that. They are simply saying that we have observed during our investigation that there's divergence of opinion, and that whichever way it should go could not be left with us. To be left in the hands of the courts. That's what they're saying. Okay. But now going beyond that, these religious people, that I don't fault religious leaders and experts in this matter, because they have a duty under the religious practices to bring moral issues to the forefront for discussion. That is healthy for our children, for our future, for our own parameters. What is permissible parameters with respect to our society as Ghanaians? Moral parameters. So the people who can help us define the moral parameters are these religious leaders.
All right, I'll take a quick break here. When I return, and I understand that all of you are itching to make a statement or two. I'll take a quick break and return to the rest of the remainder of the discussion, and I'll also share with you what those of you watching and listening have been saying on this particular subject. We'll be right back. This is Newsfile. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile on Joy 99.7 FM on radio and various other affiliates across the country. And also, you're watching us on your multi-TV's Joy News channel. I am Samson Ladi. A few of your text messages, and then we'll finish this discussion. I'll take very brief comments, and my panelists are itching to say a word or two. Now, Isahaku says a man arise from Hamile that Samson, this government is throwing dust into the eyes of Ghanaians. Nanaoye's appointment will convince Cameroon and Obama to give them loans to fulfill their huge so-called Better Ghana agenda. Kofi in Kumasi writes, President Mahama is so wise to endorse Oyelita. Her disqualification could have cost us internationally. I don't know what you know. Chestine writes, I think most people do not understand the position of Oyelita. She is the right person for the job. Spike in Ohio writes, no Ghanaian is saying homosexuals should be lynched. What Ghanaians are saying is that homosexuality is foreign to our Ghanaian culture, and all attempts should be made to marginalize them. Homosexuals should not be tolerated in Ghana, period. See. Amo Salas Samuel in Kenya writes, why should a president who says homosexuality is criminal appoint Oyelita who endorses the acts? Does she endorse the acts to such a delicate office? We need answers. John in Aflao writes, is it wise for our president to appoint a controversial woman? Is there no any other qualified woman in the party? Oh, Mr. President, males, I miss you. And this one, Charles, he says, what is the difference between human rights and civil rights? Is the issue about civil rights or human rights? Ghanaians are not against the human rights of homosexuals, but the issue is to do with the laws of Ghana. Do the laws of Ghana allow their act? Public post or leadership is not only about competence, but also the appreciation of social values. So her view on homosexuality cannot be private. Frederick Wodo writes, I am very delighted that Kwabena Japan saw what I saw. An advocate like Nana Oyelita, who plays a patriotic vigilante role in this country, should never have taken that position. Such a shame that the appointment, I can't finish that one clearly. I won't clearly get it. And you're really referring to Professor Nana Gino Poko-Adjuman too as well. Well, but we have a history in this country. There are others who have also gone the same line. I think Fremont Opare, for example. Now, William Opare in Sunyani writes, Leviticus 20:13 tells Christians to put to death homosexuals. Is this what we really want in our society? The fact that homosexuality is criminal stands still, but shouldn't someone like Nana Oyelita protect them from the mob justice they may suffer, at least before they will be tried in court? That's the question. Ata Imoro writes from Willensi, Oyelite's approval is an indication that vetting of the president's nominee is merely procedural. And a very final one I'll take. Okai in Accra writes, President Mahama, a Christian, has surprised us by nominating a gay rights activist as minister. Thank you for those messages. I'll want you to finish with your point very briefly.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I was saying is that religious leaders also have a duty under this sort of process to bring forward for public discussion certain moral principles or practices. Because that's the only way our children can grow up and appreciate the moral parameters of our society.
They are following the Bible.
Yes, so I have no problem with that. They have no problem with them bringing this moral
following
issues.
The Bible, following the Quran.
For this discussion.
The African traditional religion, they also say
it enriches us as a society for them to discuss it. They brought it within this, during this debates or proceedings. Somebody would think it was too much, it was overwhelming, it was not necessary. But I would think that any avenue that there's a public exercise, the religious bodies also have the right to contribute to it. And that was a very healthy thing.
All right. Now, Lee, briefly.
On the same issue of the clergy, my brother Edward Sari said earlier that he considers it a sickness. There are some who think it natural. There are some who think it other things. But the important thing is, what about the saving grace of Christ? If you are a church, this is supposed to be a home for, if you're trapped, if you're a young man out there or a young girl out there today, and you're trapped, you are confused about your sexual orientation or sickness, as some people take it, where should you go? Can you now no longer go to a church for solace?
I understand their position to say, and they have said that,
so
that
are they
will embrace them, but they don't want to encourage it.
Which is exactly where we are. No party in this country will encourage homosexuality. No president of this country will promote it. So what is the debate about? Is it about human rights or is it about homosexuality? And for me, as I've said from the beginning, we'll put human rights above the frenzy on homosexuality.
Okay. Now, Kwabena thinks that he's not satisfied with the president's statement that was made public yesterday by the information minister. What's your problem with that?
I think it was a shocking statement. He muddied the waters. I mean, when you say that the president has no business or doesn't have the business to know the background of people he deals with, and he has nothing to do with someone who was an MC of your program, even when you're having your birthday party, you pick and choose who your MC is. You are the president of the Republic of Ghana. Even people you dine with, you can be taking pictures of, and that is why we have foreign research intelligence. There is a department like that.
Let me read what Mahama Yaga said briefly. Yeah. And he said that very often he only gets to know who is going to be the MC when he gets there, who is going to be the moderator. He gets to know when he gets there. There are so many other actors at the event that he only gets to know when he gets to the event. Presidents are too busy to be concerned about such detail. If you are going to launch a book and they say there is going to be a moderator, and then you ask what is his sexual orientation, it is not what you expect of a president.
And I say this in all humility. I've been at the presidency for quite a considerable amount of time. I don't know what Ayaga is talking about. That is why we have a chief of staff. That is why we have a national security apparatus. That is why we have a Department of Foreign Intelligence. You cannot tell me that the president can go to a program and does not know those who are responsible for the program. What is he talking about?
But of course,
the vice president, please.
They were made to know, and this is public knowledge.
I think this is the first time I've ever seen.
Andrew Solomon is a prolific writer.
The first time I've seen an MC buy the first copy of a book launch. That's the first time I've ever seen anything like it. And he has the financial wherewithal to also buy the first copy. If anybody has seen anything like that before in any book launch, they should let us know. It doesn't normally happen. You understand? So this attempt is all a belated attempt to distance themselves. Either there was a failure of intelligence. You see, it's not everything that I want to pin on the president per se or the vice president at the time. If there has been a failure of intelligence, it is for him to admit and deal with those who failed in their duty, because it's people's duty to check these things and give you a brief when you are on a foreign travel. And he was vice president of the Republic. You are going to launch your own personal book. So there are two issues. Either you are separating it from your function as vice president and then doing it as an individual. But you still carry the tag of the vice president of the Republic at the time. You cannot tell me that when he traveled, there was no national security apparatus, there was no foreign intelligence brief from our mission in Washington or in America. They should have known those who are billed to speak, those who he was billed to meet, and then they would do a little background check.
So if he had gotten to know the sexual orientation of Andrew Solomon, he should have rejected him being the MC and should have rejected his purchase of the book?
I'm not saying that. I'm not going to pass judgment. But if you promote such a person, it's an illustration of your own values. That's why I said that. You have values. There's nothing wrong. There are people who have appointed gay people into high positions around the world because they believe in that. You know, and if you don't have any shame to that, that is your own belief. I would not act that way, but that is my person. And you see, this gay, lesbian thing, of course we know it goes on in the schools, but we all know it's alien to our culture. But of course with westernization, the global village, and things are happening. We understand. But if the president wants to send a signal, that is why we have leaders. And that is why I talked about the appointing authority. This is something that is within your own ambit. It is your own book line. And so if you tell me you don't know the history of the one who is going to launch your book, then there's a failure of security or intelligence.
Yeah, I want to say
you do that in a minute, and then Edu Asare finishes and we'll move on.
I think I disagree with you in some substantial way.
Yeah.
We shouldn't just lump things together like this. First of all, what was he going to do?
Launch a book.
He was not going to talk about, represent Ghana, about United Nations, about the International Monetary Fund loan, our economy, and other things. He was going to launch a book. Just like if you're a physicist, and you're going to launch a book on physics, a new theory on physics, you're looking for somebody who can represent people to say, oh, this book will be acceptable or not. So people with a lot of knowledge, a lot of contacts are the people you are looking for.
You recognize that there's no point he ceases to be vice president of the Republic?
That is not it. He wasn't performing the function.
But it's important that he does not cease to be the vice president.
Yeah, we're not saying that.
Yes.
The function. If he's going to name his child, for example, he is always the president, but naming the child is not a public function. It is not. And we should
the first family is a public family.
Not a public. What I say is not a state function.
Okay.
Who invites there his in-law?
Okay.
Whoever. It is not. His
right, let me hear from
just a little thing. I'm not worried about what happened there.
Yes.
I'm worried about the response.
Okay.
You know,
all right.
because the response is poor.
We need to cut this discussion.
If you believe in the person and you use him, stick to that.
When one writes a book, it is expected that the book will be circulated widely, so that people will have the benefit of the content of the book.
Yes.
And how can you do it if you don't use the right person, or let's say the right people to promote it? This gentleman has a record. Okay, if you check his background, he's an author. He's a prolific writer, as has been discussed already. And certainly, he has that network that can propagate or promote the sale of this book, and for it to achieve its desired result. So when you have you engage the services of such a person, and you achieve your purpose, whoever knew that today or that 3 or 4 days ago when Nanoye Lita was vetted, this issue was going to come up so big as it has come up today, for it to be linked to this. Where has this story been all this while?
But this has been an issue in this country for a while.
When did you hear this, or this Solomon issue? It only came up a few days, yesterday or 2 days ago.
Debates about
yes, but the point, people are beginning to piece their own, beliefs, just to end up smearing the president. For me, that is.
Let me just
to link it to Nanoye Lita's appointment. I think is a bit disingenuous.
Okay, let me just read this, and we end the subject on this one. And this is the Appointments Committee's report to Parliament yesterday recommending the approval of Nana Oye later and the 4 other minister designates who appeared before it. On the questioning of homosexuality, this is what the committee captured as what she said, or she represents. The nominee stated that she does not advocate the promotion of homosexuality in the country. According to her, as a human rights lawyer, she had over the years advocated respect for the rights of every person as guaranteed by the 1992 Constitution, irrespective of the person's sexual preference. She maintained that she will continue to defend the rights of the vulnerable and marginalized in society, notwithstanding the person's sexual orientation. She called for a national debate on whether or not the practice of homosexuality should be criminalized. I think that is where we are.
That's what you showed everybody. You know, you showed she's also. That's what you showed everybody.
This is what the conclusion of the committee.
So that is not in any contest at all. Okay. I don't think anybody has contested it because it was very clear.
They captured it right.
What she said. My disagreement with Edu Asare on this issue of Andrew Solomon is it is not the creation of anybody. You understand? It is the Minister of Information who is trying to explain away.
Okay.
If the Minister of Information has said, look, we appointed this person, or the President appointed this person because he's a seasoned journalist, so and so, and of course, even if he's homosexual, it doesn't matter, and that's what he did. Let's stick to principles and not be hypocritical and just pander to politics, you know. That if it is convenient, then we use someone. When we get onto the political platform, then we damn the person. That, for me, is what I'm worried about. It's not his choice. If he's choosing that because of the journalistic thing, he should stick to it and say, look, these are the qualities of this man. Yes, he may have been a so lobbyist or whatever.
All right, this is Newsfile. This is Newsfile. And you're watching us on your multi-TV channel. We need to move on. And, we have some other very important issues to discuss, really. And you have already prompted me about that. Now, let's look at the mystery $80 million Ghanaian gold that's supposed to have been detained in Turkey, and the questions that have come up so far. The government, the Office of the President, issued a straight categorical denial that there has been any such thing that has happened, being Ghana's, commitments in whatever way to that country. I'll start with you, Edu Asare. Government's response, do you find that satisfactory to settle this matter?
Well, I will rather push that question to the fact that those who where this whole story started from. Okay, because if you checked the newspapers that started this story on Monday, they wrote the story and drew conclusions. And they never even made one attempt to speak to anybody from government. So it sets the tone that for some kind of perception that something fishy had taken place.
The story had long existed on the internet.
Wonderful.
And the whole world had gotten to know about it. The government had to wait for people in Dankwa Institute and the rest to raise the issue before it would come out with this statement that it says, and the release said that government's attention has been drawn to media reports about a cargo plane allegedly detained in Turkey and carrying gold from Ghana destined for the Islamic Republic of Iran. The Office of the President of the Republic of Ghana wishes to inform the Ghanaian public that this government has not engaged in any transaction with Iran that requires the discharge of any financial commitment to that country in gold. Further, this government has not authorized or been involved in any gold shipment to Iran in fulfillment of any such financial commitments. The government has launched an investigation into the media reports to determine the veracity of the allegation and would communicate with the public on any findings made. His Excellency the President, John Dramani Mahama, wishes to affirm to the Ghanaian public his unwavering commitment to leading a government that is transparent and abides by the rule of law.
Yeah, I think the statement is fantastic. Yes, it's clear. But my point here is that this does not, or whichever, what will I say, source they chose to put this case, does not negate the journalistic standard that one has to. I'm not a journalist, but I know that at least there's always two sides to an issue. So once you pick an issue from a source, you also go and run your checks so that wherever you got your source, whichever source you got your story from, you also bring the perspective of whoever the whole thing concerns that you have contacted, their perspective on the story. But they set the tone. By Monday evening, everybody knew that Ghana we've gone to sell some gold worth $80 million and under strange circumstances to pay off a certain debt that we didn't have any source to buttress. So for me, that is the problem. It took when the story brew, I was on another station, it came up, we spoke to the spokesperson of the president. And before I even came, I had also run checks because I knew this story was going to come up somehow. So I made my own checks, and I was told categorically that this is not true. So stick to that. So when I came, before we even spoke to John, I said that this is not true. So for me, I think that, yes, there is some level of investigation that should be conducted. But to wade government into this whole thing right from the beginning.
But it took these publications to prompt government to act.
Wonderful. But we are all getting to know. Journalists who wet their salt have gone to pull out documents. They went deep down to try and fish out information. And for me, that is what I'm talking about. These are documents that I got from the Herald newspaper. For me, that is what journalism is about. You don't just hear any story
and this documentation effectively says what? That
yes.
It's been a private
of course, these are
arrangement
all private
and
arrangement. Government is not involved. And that is the point I want to make. But like I said, it is this if it is even a private transaction, there is the need to get, if the volumes you are talking about is anything to go by, I still believe that one has to know, because there are also reports that the airport, the civil aviation, is not aware of such a transaction.
The Minerals Commission as well.
Exactly.
We should have been.
Okay, and then other reports also said that the Geological Survey sanctioned the certain amount of it. Okay, I don't know if whatever amount they sent there, but it was for testing, analysis purposes. And for me, these are the questions that this whole thing raises. That, yes, can such a move of a big haul like this leave this country without the appropriate authorities knowing anything about it? For me, it's marks of some terrible thing that might have taken place. And that is worth the investigation the president has authorized. So for anybody to try to wade government into it and whip up, because I also heard that the AP, Associated Press, the Turkish news agency called the story in a French version, and they translated it.
Joy News brought that aspect of the story.
Okay, so certainly, by the time you get to the bottom of the real issue, everybody will be finding ways to distance themselves from the real story. But that does not negate, or that should not negate the attempt. However this thing went about, this Omanye gold, whatever they call them, we should find some, whatever, however they got this gold, if it really left this country. You also know that, according to the documents I have here, the aircraft emanated from Tripoli, came to Accra en route to Istanbul. Other sources are also saying that Istanbul was not the final destination, but the UAE, which is Dubai. So, of course, there is some kind of investigation that should, or some light should be thrown onto the issue so that everybody gets a clearer mind. But the point I am making here is that this is not something that government has or is involved in a manner that has been reported widely by the Statesman, the Daily Guide, which other paper? I think 3 or so papers, and that is the issue we want to put out. So with this release,
let's hear from Kwabena Japong, and it is the Dankwa Institute that began to blow the whistle, as in picking the story from the international warriors and beginning to throw it up here in Ghana. Now, the Dankwa Institute obviously is linked with the NPP, and the accusation is that the NPP has been in an indecent haste in, going out with this story and seeking to bring in the president or the government.
Well, the Dankwa Institute may be sympathetic to our political tradition, but it is not the NPP. So I want that to be very clear. Please don't appropriate a statement from the Dankwa Institute to be that of to the NPP. That is not correct. I'm confused. What is confusing about this? Dankwa Institute is a public policy think tank, which is right-leaning. Fine, that is what it is. Okay. It is not the NPP. It's not an organ of the NPP. That's fact. I mean, let's restrict ourselves to fact. 2, I mean, these are very interesting times. Very interesting times. When I was coming here and I was listening to the program, I mean, I think you were playing voices. The civil aviation says nothing like that happened. The question is, what is the story? I mean, let's forget about the journalism, the whatever. That one, we suffer it all the time in the country. The substantive issue, and sometimes we shouldn't be overly political. And I don't want to be. This may be a failure, a systemic failure of our country. And it's something we should be passionate about. How is it? Is it true that a plane was in this country? That's the question we should ask. And that the civil aviation says that they don't have it on their records? And we have a national security system, intelligence in this country? Because this is what I heard on the radio. That the Bank of Ghana does not know this. That the precious minerals does not know what is happening. And that is why sometimes, because governments are ultimately responsible for running a country, then people may begin to have, this can happen with collusion of certain state officials. You understand? I don't want to be overly political, but this is a very serious issue. We are talking what? 1,500, 1.5 metric tons. That's a lot of gold. And are we saying that the civil aviation cannot tell us any aircraft that uses our airspace is supposed to be locked? Where they came from, their embarkation, everything is supposed to be locked. If that information is not on our civil aviation record, that is a serious matter. A very serious matter. And so we should not joke with this. Making political allusions, I will not get into that. The important thing is what I heard this morning coming to your studio. Frightened me. That Bank of Ghana says they don't have anything. We have regulations. And so far, and this is a big, if it's an export, of course, private people are allowed to export gold. But they should be verifiable. They should be registered. And so what is the company? Nobody has heard of. Ventures. I mean, really. If you are a cocoa buyer, and it's not CMB, we all know the big licensed cocoa buyer is in the country. I'm not into gold, but nobody seems to know what this Omanye something is. Who is the MD of the company? The company is not speaking. Why is government officials speaking for the company when the company, they should be speaking for themselves? Have they committed a crime against the state of Ghana? Those are the issues that we should be looking at. And it's a very serious matter. And if eventually it points in a certain direction, we can then interrogate that direction further. But the question I want to ask, what is the story? Did a plane take off with gold from Ghana? Because I heard some commentators, unfortunately, NDC communication team saying that this is not from Ghana. Let's look for the facts. I saw this story some time ago. I saw it.
Initially, the report was that it originated from Ghana, and then subsequently, we got the report also that it only transited. You only got here to refuel and...
so the gold did not... No, of course. This is the gold coast. I don't think you can carry gold from Algeria and come... why would you... You are going from Algeria or Tripoli, wherever you say. It's in North Mediterranean. And you are going closed door. Turkey is Mediterranean. How would you come down south and come and refuel in Kutaka? Please. I'm not a pilot, but I did a little geography in Infant Supreme School. You understand? So if you are... Libya or Algeria is very close to Turkey. So why would they come south? So they must have picked up some cargo here. And Ghana is known for producing gold, so it's nothing strange that you come and pick up gold. We are talking about the legal framework. Were these things done properly? Is this proper gold from Ghana? What is it? Now we are hearing about samples for testing. Are we saying we can't test gold in this country? What is that? I mean, there are too many things popping up. And that's why I'm worried about government response again. You know, when you're in government, don't worry about the politics too much.
Should it be about the response or the commitment to investigate?
The response is muddying the waters. The response from everybody, because I heard different people talk this morning, and it's either a dereliction of duty, a systemic failure. So, I mean, especially with the civil aviation thing, I can't countenance. Because for an aircraft to land, unless we are saying that the aircraft never...
But Commissioner, should we be listening to anybody talking and not what the statement from the presidency has to say?
Well, this originally should have nothing to do with the presidency to start with. We have a ministry responsible for aviation.
The president was accused, or the
government. That is true. Yeah. That is true. I haven't read that accusation. What is important is, did a plane, that particular plane, did it land in Kotoka? Did it pick up cargo from Ghana? Who is the consignee of that cargo? Who is the owner of that cargo? Have they paid the right taxes? Have things been done properly? I mean, those are the issues. Right. You know, and all those questions are unanswered, and they are very, very serious.
Yeah, so that's why this investigation has been called. So we find
too many investigations have been called.
Let me hear Nee on this. Let me hear Nee on this subject. And your text messages are still welcome. 1422 and also 1760. You can also send me a mail through newsfile@myjoyonline.com. And Kukubako has sent me one from his hideout in New York. I'll read that to you later.
Something, I think when this story first broke out, many Ghanaians across the globe, because people began to comment on social network, etc., and they were enraged about, first of all, the time it's taking for government to respond on it. Secondly, the effectiveness of our institutions to deal with, and then casting aspersions about corruption, etc. Whether and the porousness of our borders. How can such a thing leave this country and nobody is aware of it? That sort of. So the time it's taken for government to jump on this very quickly has been of concern, and it's taken the Danko Institute, if you like, and many people have even jumped on them. And I think this is not a police state, as I've said. It is not for all of us or the Danko Institute or any other institution to be gatekeepers for the government. It is our duty to keep government on its toes. And for me, I have no concerns at all that the Danko Institute or any other newspaper will seek to make capital or whatever out of it. That is essential for our democracy. We need to keep government on its toe. And if somebody says, this gold has left this country, what's the government doing about it? The government is responsible. Why haven't they tackled it? I think all of that is in order. Now, every day we are now hearing different stories. Kotoka International Airport has no record. The Civil Aviation has no record. The Minerals Commission, and even the Minerals Commission, I was listening to your report, where the Minerals Commission becomes almost the police in this issue, where they are having to go to Bank of Ghana. They are having to go to PMMC, and all of these issues. They went to the airport. Why should the Minerals Commission be doing this? From the moment this issue broke, and again, it's a matter of, as my brother Rapon say, should the police not be called in? Should intelligence agencies not be called in to immediately be doing the sort of work that Minerals Commission is saying? So that somebody takes charge immediately to understand how $80 million worth of gold can leave these shores. And even now, if we are calling for an inquiry, nobody wants to make this seem as if it's going to be swept under the carpet. The president should tell us, or the government should tell us clearly, the terms of reference of this inquiry, how long it's going to take. Has he given them a month to investigate this, 2 weeks to investigate this, and come up with a report in the shortest possible time? Because too often, in government, not just in this country, in many, many other countries, governments call for inquiries which nobody ever sees the report, only to appease the public anger for a short while, and then that's the end of it. The matter is swept under the carpet. We want to hear the next step. when this inquiry is going to end and when the government is going to then act on it. If a company has shipped out $80 million worth of, did they pay the necessary tariffs, as my brother is saying? And what tax are they paying on this shipment? Apart from tariffs, if you're a company and you've made such a transaction and you've gained on it, are you paying your taxes to government? These are some of the issues that we need to be talking about. Is there official complicity in this? So we need to hear the actual terms of reference of this investigation so that we know the full scope of what's going to happen. Is the Minerals Commission going to be investigated? Is the Civil Aviation going to be investigated? Is the airport going to be investigated? Is the Ghana Revenue Authority, Bank of Ghana? I mean, let's have a clear scope of what's going to happen so that people's anger can be appeased and we understand that, yes, our borders are not porous. People are paying their taxes. The government is responding to things. The effectiveness of our institutions are intact. Otherwise, there's an impression out there at the moment from Ghanaians across the globe that somehow things are not right. We are not in charge. And if this level of gold is leaving our shores, what else is leaving our shores? What else is even coming into the country? So there are very, very critical, important issues that we need to answer. And I think the government should underline clearly, what it needs to, what it's investigating, and when we're going to get a report.
All right. Now, Dr. Tubiga, we are now getting to know. So if it is the case that this plane indeed did transit here or originated from here, and, as the airport officials are telling us, they have no record of any Airbus, A300 carrying any that cargo, and on or before the 1st of January, and then you have the Minerals Commission also saying that they have no record of any private or commercial transaction of gold in that quantity. What should happen to those who are in these institutions if the investigation showed that indeed the plane was on our soil?
Okay. Now, it's very hard to pinpoint what would be appropriate until we find the conclusions and what the conclusions would themselves say. But let me say this, that we are all under the Constitution required to defend the state, every one of us. Criminality or criminal actions affect the state. And therefore, every journalist, every single person, every person in the Dankwa Institute or similar organizations are required to defend. And nobody, as my niece said, can begrudge anybody for bringing that about. But I think what's important in this case is this. And I've heard people say that, this is a mere conspiracy to put the government in a bad light. That nothing like that happened. And that's why it's just a question of political conspiracy to look President Mahama look inefficient, look not out of control, not be in control and that kind of thing. But I don't think it is simply that. I think what is happening here is this. Those who are making these allegations, to me, have not done an adequate job. There is no record put before everybody saying that the plane landed from this destination in Ghana here at this hour and left here at this hour and took some cargo, even they were not sure, some cargo. People who are in charge will have signed something. Then you make a prima facie case. In law, what is a minimum case supported by minimum facts that will allow somebody to sit up and investigate. It is not enough to simply make generalized, vague, unsubstantiated allegations.
It is enough to keep quiet about it when the story is spreading on the international news.
It is not so much of spreading international news. It is the responsibility of people who are putting up these stories. They are causing the harm, not the story itself. Because if you put up a story, knowing that it's going to have that kind of magnitude of impact, and you don't have minimum prima facie case, some set of facts, minimum, that will make some government, somebody to sit up. You are acting irresponsibly. And I'm saying that as we sit right now, Nobody here in Ghana has any minimum knowledge of a plane that actually landed at this hour from a certain station and left Ghana at this hour. Nothing. It's like an imagination. It's like a dream. And we're chasing a mirage. We are chasing a dream, actually. And if you are chasing a dream, you wake up from a bad sleep and you begin to scream like a bad dream. I think this is what's happening to us. So I'm saying that the story right now, I don't think the government, if I were the government, I would, for political reasons, maybe they investigate. But for purposes of responsibility, those who want to bring this issue have some minimum set of facts that will help the government and every Ghanaian to investigate something. It is not enough to just cry wolf and run away. It is not enough. That's not good for us. And we should stop this thing, if it is not true. We should stop this thing of alleging things that are never supportable or even having some sort of facts.
What the AP News, what the Turkey news agency, states news agency have done are all, it's a phantom. You should forget it.
Yeah, of course. See, here there's a company which allegedly is represented, have some representation.
But now you have even in Ghana a newspaper producing documents to support the goal that's being talked about, but suggesting to you that it was a private enterprise.
Okay, I've not seen that newspaper report saying just to me that it's a private enterprise. Even if it's a private enterprise, I would 100% believe that it's such a large quantity of our national asset that the central bank and other responsible agents would have been involved. However private it could be, even if it's a gift.
So the set of facts you're looking to make a prima facie case have been presented, and the Dwasari is holding here documents,
I've read this one.
Documents that give you a trace.
Well, you see, what we have here does not, to me, I've not seen anything that says it took any gold, any cargo. Yeah. Any cargo. See, I've not seen anything from the reports I have here. I've not seen any cargo. And you are simply the things they're talking about, that there's a plane which came down from this to this. But when it left here, nobody has done anything. And I'm saying that many planes fly in and fly out. It's normal. International airport, that's what international airport is about. You can divert in, pick up something, or refuel, or do whatever. That is permissible within international trade. And we shouldn't be so sensitive that we just put anything there unless we have some minimum facts. And that's what I'm saying, that the government should still go ahead and investigate. But I think eventually it will be a lesson for all of us that we all are responsible to speak not only the truth, but of the facts. If we don't have the facts, we can just prepare rumors. Rumors are not good for our development. And I don't think it is the right thing to do. But I'm saying, for me, there are no minimum facts established. No prima facie case. As a lawyer, we look at prima facie case.
So the question I asked is that in case the investigations show that the plane that's being spoken about actually, was in this country and nobody cited it.
Okay.
And it left.
Very good.
What should happen?
Oh, two things. First, it will help us as a country to reinforce our defenses. It means our defenses are so porous and that we run a high risk as a country to be involved in international trade.
It means the people we are paying to do the job are sleeping on the job and ought to be giving a different job.
Second, if the people who are supposed to do the job breached rules, that means there are rules against this kind of conduct, but they did not act according to the rules, then they were punished. You see, it's not so much of that it actually happened, but it also must require that there were rules that were violated. Then you can look for punishment. Even if it happened, but there were no rules that were violated, you cannot punish anybody.
Step briefly outside the court and look at the issue in this manner. That is, okay. It's established that the plane was here and nobody cited it.
Yes.
You don't need any rules to say that the president, for example, should make an order that some people should get out of the job.
Oh, I'm saying that if for example, I'm not an airport expert, but if the rules are such that a plane can land and take off without certain entries being made or checks being made, you cannot put somebody as having failed to carry out.
I see.
Okay. So, but if there are rules that require certain checks to be made, and people did not, then yes.
All right, let me finish with
there's a document. The documents I have here.
That's from the civil aviation.
Yes, it's the subject is a landing clearance request. Okay, and the name of operator is ULS Airlines Cargo. Address is from Dubai, UAE. Type of aircraft A310. But the point of interest here is purpose of flight is cargo flight. Type of cargo on board, gold bars. Okay, so this is a company that is applying for landing rights. And they have to inform the civil aviation of the cargo that is on board that flight. And so this tells you what or indicates the information that they provided to the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. So somehow with this document, it tells you that the gold did not originate from Ghana. That is as per this document. Okay, we are only tossing these things out of our own minds, just in case this story is not true. How could, as the other newspapers put it out there, how could such a magnitude of gold leave this country? So we are all conjecturing at this point. For which reason this information from the presidency requires that we investigate this matter and get to know what brought about this. Because as Kwabena just said, there's no, listening to the reports that you played earlier, there is one that says that the civil aviation have no information or record on this particular thing. So this is a document with the emblem of the Ghana Civil Aviation, with the stamp of the Director, Air Operations, Air Force Headquarters, Burma Camp, Accra, with a signature of somebody here. So certainly we can investigate this matter and get to know the circumstances under which this whole transaction took place.
If we can do that in 30 seconds.
There's a theme which is running through this whole thing, which is to do with payment to Iran. And my mind is still puzzled as to how a plane lands in Turkey. You don't have the necessary papers to prove that you are transacting gold from one place to another. But somehow, out of all of that, the news agencies then come out with a story about this is payment to Iran. And that's for services rendered. Where does all of that come from? Where does this issue about and how does the AP or anybody else come to such a conclusion? Is this the case of no fire without smoke, or no smoke without fire, or we need to get to the bottom of this Iran element.
And Dr.
For many people,
Tumuga was getting closer to the 419, theory that is also being said about this.
For many people, Iran has a right, etc. So even
before discounting what my good friend Akonfa has said, see, rather than attack DI, Danko Institute, for this, we should rather be congratulating them for bringing this to the fore. Because the question is, if this document, and I say this with all due respect, can I have a look at it? I don't know where this document is coming from. But it's very strange that you have a Director of Air Operations, Air Force Headquarters, stamp on a Ghana Civil Aviation letterhead. For me, there are too many issues. This is not a Ghana Air Force letterhead. And I don't know Air Force Headquarters, Burma Camp doing on civil aviation.
Maybe they have to approve it.
No, this is not an approval. Okay? These are Air Force remarks. But if it's Air Force remarks, it should not be on civil aviation. You see, because it says Ghana Air Force from civil aviation. So it's complicated.
It could be that's the process.
And that is why. So now we are confirming. I asked the question, did a plane land here? If indeed a plane landed here, then we have a serious infraction. Because that is what it is.
All right.
And then the strange coincidence also of the president visiting Turkey at the same time.
This was,
within that
already arranged.
Well, I'm saying that it is. That's why I said it's a strange. That's why I say it's a strange coincidence. Because I saw
1st January.
I saw this thing on the internet. I read it because I saw Ghana. It flagged on my, and I was like, "What's happening here?" But I thought it was a private businessman. But the fact that they didn't have the requisite documents also said something. Now, Edward Sarah is saying from this document, I don't know the source of this document, that it appears the cargo was not even from Ghana. If the cargo was not from Ghana, it's even more serious. Then our ports are being used as a point of laundering or tricking around international regulations or something. Because there is no way you will fly from Algeria or Tripoli, which is in the Mediterranean, and fly 5 hours down to Accra and go back up 8 hours. For what reason? Unless you are trying to dodge something criminal may be happening or something.
All right.
So that's the need for this, the reason for
the investigation.
Yeah. So I think it's a very serious matter, and we should be congratulating the institute.
Thank you very much indeed. Newsfile is brought to you by the kindest sponsorship of MTN, Everywhere You Go, and Bank of Africa. Now, let me read this very message, and we'll be back to do the last topic we have to discuss. This one's from Kekubaku, who says, I'm inclined to agree with Ndebugri that presently our laws do not explicitly deal with homosexuality in the general and larger sense of the phenomenon. This is because while sodomy is about unnatural carnal knowledge, which the Criminal Offences Act presently deals with, the laws of the country are silent on things like same-sex marriages and other newer and modern aspects of lesbianism and homosexuality. Obviously, we need to update and upgrade our laws to deal with the latter characteristics of lesbianism and homosexuality. Clearly, the laws now suffer a certain limitation and inadequacy and need some recrafting. I suppose that that is the rationale behind the recommendation of the Constitution Review Commission to the effect that the Supreme Court must be activated to provide a legal remedy to the apparent lacuna in our legal regime. Apparently, the CRC, for some reasons, preferred a judicial determination to a legislative process in resolving the challenge. Interesting times ahead. Abdul Malik Kweku Bako Jr. We'll be right back.
That's very good.
All right, welcome back. This is Newsfile on Joy 99.7 FM, also on your Joy News channel on Multi TV. Now, this text has no name, says, what Kwabena is saying is true. The national security always gives a brief on those who meet the president or the vice. Kojo in London writes, some of us in Europe will use our European passport to travel around Europe to relay the true information of these gold bars to the people of Ghana soon. Please do it quickly. Philip writes, I understand a man connected with the exportation of the gold has been arrested. One Peter Kofi Bedra is in the grip of the security agency, just for your information. Now, John Kofi Opong Checheku writes, this gold issue is very strange, so the authorities should investigate this matter seriously. Okay. Na jinse mwana bibisa. Ofori from Anamabo writes, this show.
Sronipa Nejai Saman.
Oh, sir. Sronipa Nejai Saman. Okay. Ofori writes, this shows how porous our borders are. If such huge amounts of gold can pass through them, then we should check the amount of drugs, cocaine, that passes through our borders. And Kojo again says, can you let the government know that some BBC journalists are investigating this scandal, and we shall surely get the true information. Thank you very much for your comments on the matters that we are discussing. Now let's do some law. And I like, first of all, to start with you, Dr. Tubiga. You are the lawyer. When you say, and in the last few weeks, this country has become very familiar with a new vocabulary phrase, further and better particulars. Just briefly tell us, what is it about? Because the NPP, as we are told, the John Mahama, who is a respondent in the petition, the EC, which is the second respondent, are asking for further and better particulars of the NPP. And we understand that the Nanado's team answer is that they are seeking to know their evidence before they start the game, and that's not good enough.
Well, before I make any comment, I'd like to state for the record that as a lawyer, I respect my lords, the Supreme Court judges.
Yeah.
The matter is before them, and what I'm saying is simply my understanding or remarks as a legal professional, yes, but not the position of the law.
Just education.
Okay. So I want the public to understand.
What is it when you say you are asking for
I want the public to
and better
understand that. Okay. I understand that further and better particulars become necessary where a person makes in his pleadings certain allegations that you do not understand exactly the allegations that he is complaining about. And you're asking the court to ask the person to give you a better explanation, pinpoint, let me broaden the information so that you can have enough understanding of what the person is doing. And it's doing that for two reasons. First, you who is receiving information want to have enough facts so you can respond. Two, that you want to have enough information so that at the trial, the person who is making the allegation cannot present evidence that you have not prepared yourself to respond.
So sort of avoid ambushment.
So the whole theory of further and better class is, first of all, give me enough information to respond to what you are saying, and then also to make sure that whatever evidence you are making, I can also rebut the evidence with my own
In this
evidence.
situation directly, if the petitioner is saying that I'm relying on documentation that is available to, and actually that is produced by the respondent, can you still go to the petitioner and be asking for further and better particulars? Because what the NPP or the NADO and Co are going to rely on are sheets that the EC has.
Oh, well, I have not seen the specific allegation, as I'm saying. And I'm not going to preempt the adequacy of the response which is before my lords. But what I'm saying is that if they say they are relying exclusively on the documentation, well, yes, the EC may have, but the other respondent, the president, may not have.
There were participants in this election.
Right.
But all of them are expected to have.
Right. Okay, but what I'm saying is that, for example, and I don't, from the newspaper reports, it seems that saying that certain documents were not signed, or the machine did not activate. But if you look at I participated in the elections. What happens is that when you approach the polling people, the EC people, they would put your thumb on the machine. If it activates or not activates, they tell to go to the next person. The next person, they give you one form to go into a booth and vote for the presidential. After that, you go back, take a form and go into the other side to vote for parliamentary. You don't come back here again. So, if you look at it, it will be hard to determine which people did the machine activate and which people did not activate. So if you are saying there were irregularities, with respect to the machine not activating, they need to know the number and the polling station that all these things happen.
All right.
You need to know that. But if you also rely on documentation, they would have to indicate for you that suppose you don't have those documents. If they're particular, you can then go back to your own documents and say, oh, this is what I complained about, I have it. This is what I'm complaining about, I have it. If they don't have it, then you ask them at trial, I don't have this, let me have it.
Exchange documents.
Right. So I think the further and particular is simply to make sure that whatever you're saying, please give me enough information so that I'll check and see whether or not What I have here is what you're talking about.
Okay. Now, if we can move on to the latest development on this matter, and this is that the NPP, and forgive me if I use NPP, I want to use that generic term for the petitioners. Nana Akufo-Addo, Nana Danko Akufo-Addo, the flag bearer, 2012, and his vice presidential candidate, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, and Jacob Echebi-Lamte, the national chairman of the party. They are seeking to amend their petition, and the essence is that the earlier complaint was of irregularities occurring in some 4,709 polling stations. Now, that is going up by 11,901 polling stations. They are seeking to have the Supreme Court annul as many as 4 million votes. That's serious.
Are you talking?
Yeah.
I was not sure whether.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll just start with a response to what Dr. Tobiga has said. I think we were very clear, not we, I'll say the petitioners. The petitioners.
Which is you.
Well,
associate with them, don't worry.
Of course. But I just want to be factual. Okay, we were, if you accept that. Very clear in the categories of irregularities, of course. So, and I think when I looked at the response of the EC, and the response of the EC suggested that they had virtually seen all the irregularities and determined that there were none. Because they said everything should be dismissed. And that's where it begs the question of better particulars, whatever you're talking about. But again, I thought maybe what they were asking for, and I think that's what they're asking for, that the identity, the exact identity, location of these polling stations. That, I think, is what they are looking for.
All right.
Because the first petition said 4,709. Where? In which constituencies? What code numbers? I think that's what they are looking for.
Okay.
But I think I am not them, but maybe that's what they are looking for. Because the law dictates to everyone that it is the EC that runs these elections. And the EC should have the originals of the 26,000 polling station results. Every presidential candidate nominates one agent. That's where Dr. Tobiga was saying the president may not have. He should have. Because you nominate one agent. It is the candidate that nominates. It's not the party.
So like you said, the EC is seeking for the petitioners to point them to the specific documents that they should go for.
I don't speak for the EC, but I think maybe that's what they are requesting.
It is so.
I think that's what they are requesting. Because if you say there is nothing, then why are you asking for better particulars? Because it means that you have looked through your 26,000 and have found no breaches of regulations and law. Otherwise, then their response was a bit ill-informed or was too early. Maybe they should have taken their time and waited for the better whatever before they responded in the way they did. Because if you look at their response, they are dismissing anything that we are saying as frivolous. So basically, I think that this is a matter, and I heard someone, I think, when coming here.
Nana Atudazi.
They say 11,000, yes. There was it Nana Atudazi?
Yes, that's Nana Atudazi. He's a member of the NDC legal team.
I was hoping it was
He actually says that the NPP is fishing for non-existent evidence, and if you are bringing 11,000.
There's nothing wrong with fishing to start with. There's nothing wrong with that. You see, because I think it's important that we make things clear to the nation. That what we are talking about, the essence, the very heart of this case, okay, it's not about the persona of Nanado or the victory of a political party, but it is about the impudence of an electoral system that can doctor and change the people's will. That, for me, is the central issue. And I don't want to live in a country where we all wake up in the morning, some go and sleep from 12 midnight, 2 a.m., and then some EC officials who are paid to report exact will of the people can do things with that. That is something that we should stop in this country. So that when a result is declared, as Nanado said in Kumasi on that day, that whoever wins knows that he has won truly, and whoever does not win knows that he didn't garner enough votes. That is what we want to build in this country. And when you hear the talk of the likes of a CDK, very irresponsible talk. As if it's about how good a thief you are. And as ICQ said, stealers. You know, how well you can steal an election. For me, the election is not about those who are counting. It is about those who are voting. Those who are counting should count exactly what has been voted. That's what it is.
Nketia says you have problems with mathematics or arithmetic. You are unable to count properly.
Well, you see, the country pays the Electoral Commission to field people at the various polling stations to run the elections. They are the ones who should have their mathematics right first. Look, if a candidate or even a political party does not have the economic wherewithal to send polling station agents, it means that they should be fleeced. Is that what we are saying as a people? Is that a democracy we want to build? So all I'm trying to say here is the originals are with the EC. The president should have his copies because he sent agents to all the 26,000 plus polling stations. For me, it is just about the identity. I think maybe our team should provide it for them. If it's not, give them the sheet. Because they should have the original.
All right.
It is not the creation of the NPP. It is a duplicate.
I'll return to you and you'll also answer that.
Yeah.
It's said that it is in your interest to have this matter run as speedily as it can, so that you'd have the outcome you expect. But by going through amendment and all of these things, you are further putting, as it were, spokes in the wheels.
Yeah.
Now,
but what I was going to say is that I wanted to agree with him about the integrity of the electoral process, because our democracy depends on that. Nobody should ever compromise that. But what has happened now put me as an individual to begin thinking backwards. What happened in 1992? What happened in 1996? What happened in 2000? What happened in 2004? What happened in 2008? Because you have the same Afarijan who conducted these elections, the same EC who conducted these elections. They were won fairly in 1992. They won fairly in 1992.
They have been challenged.
92 was not.
They have been challenged.
1996, they didn't go to Supreme Court. These were all political allegations.
No, they have been challenged.
In the Supreme Court?
Exactly.
1992?
No, I'm not talking about 1992.
Right. I'm saying that we are not, we
2004 was challenged, but not in the
Supreme Court.
Gravity that we find.
Okay, right.
But they ended up in the Supreme
Court.
But
what I'm saying is that it seems there's something about this particular time, because that means all these were fraudulent elections, or is it now? Now?
Do you want me to give you an answer?
Yeah, everybody has won them fairly, except this time.
You don't want to suggest that the EC is beyond mistakes.
Nobody has suggested that. I think it's important that all of us recognize that elections from 1992 till now, there have been problems with those elections.
But they have improved.
Okay? So we are consistently improving and improving and improving. To the point where now a political party has the organization to bring together all their coalition sheets and then find problems with it. In times past, and I'm telling you, in 2008 election, despite the fact that we were in government, in 8 constituencies in the Volta region, we did not have polling agents. So how were we able to, retrieve? I'm saying that they were prevented from going there. There were roadblocks. It happened in this country. Let's not. So all I'm trying to say is, all I'm trying to say is we have a situation on our hand. Doctor, what you are trying to do, when you want to extrapolate from 1992 and say that because there were no complaints and therefore there should not be any complaints, or that because we are complaining now, are we now suggesting that even in 2000 when we won, or 2004, there were no issues? There were issues.
Point made.
But you see, there's a public division on that everybody, Afarijan, the same Afarijan was conducting this election.
It's not about Afarijan.
The same electoral commission. No, the same electoral commission.
It's not about Afarijan.
The same electoral commission, and they all won fairly until this time.
Let me tell you something. I've been involved in this. So if you give me a little time, it's not about the persona of Afarijan. And he's said it before. He perhaps is maybe the last person to even see the result. You have 26,000 personnel that the EC, or more, in fact more, deploys in the field.
Yes.
You talked about integrity. I'm very happy you talked about that.
For sure,
and I have been critical of the Electoral Commissioner saying outwardly, openly, that he cannot vouch for the integrity of his officials. For me, that was a very serious statement for him to make.
Yeah, you must be able
He
to
said
vouch.
that.
But that's a sincere statement.
No,
to make.
sometimes, yes, it may be a sincere statement, but you don't make it. I remember when he said, "Oh, machines can break down." He said, "Kwabena, you're an engineer. You know machines can break down." I said, "Doctor, you don't say such a thing. When the machines begin to break down, people will begin to accuse you." And that's what exactly happened. We have to be careful what we say.
Now, let me come in. Now, the NDC legal team says that this is looking for evidence where there's really none, and just trying to mount allegations and constitute them into evidence. It won't work.
Yeah, for me, I think this whole episode, I'll call it, it's getting interesting, because here is a political party that made Ghanaians to know or understand or give the impression that they have issues, okay, and you expected that between the time when the elections took place, the results were declared, and the time when the case was filed, you expected that they prepared very well, because they claimed they had information that renders this whole election, casts a dark shadow on it. So, subsequent to the filing and other proceedings of the Supreme Court, now we are beginning to, hear about addendums here and there, some levels of issues you don't really know where they are heading. They want Ghanaians or the Supreme Court to annul over 4 million votes. Okay, yet on another score, on another platform, they are telling Ghanaians that their votes count. Okay, not at the Supreme Court, but other platforms that they, as a party, have created. So if 4 million votes should count, why are you asking for those votes to be annulled? This is an issue that Ghanaians will have to grapple with. So at the end of the day, you ask what exactly. I just heard Kwabena say that the focus is not just to make Nana Addo president or otherwise, but for the credibility of the election process, which is fantastic.
Yes.
We've all, over the years, and let me also say that having won elections and having been declared a winner of an election as a political party does not mean we don't have issues, or there are no issues or we have no issues with the Electoral Commission. But as we all do, you may have challenges before an exam. Even the last payment you have to pay, you pay it on the last day and all of that. But once you write the exam and pass, the joy of it sometimes make it, you gloss over those challenges. That not what, maybe I'm using the word gloss a bit reservedly here. You become more attracted to the win, and there's a responsibility just 1 month after winning elections. Unlike even the United States, where you have to.
This is the first time the NPP is losing elections.
Wonderful, and they've always lost with challenges. We also lost elections with
challenges as well.
That's it. So fine, the case is in court, but here we are. You're asking for particulars because you claim you have over 4,000 now, 11, almost 12,000. That is fantastic.
Don't you shiver when you hear the mounting numbers they are now bringing, which will mean that, and this is what they are looking at,
right?
That in effect you will have about over 3 million votes that were cast or are said to have been given to 3 million votes, over 3 million votes that are said to have been cast in favor of John Mahama, annulled.
No. We are talking about
general.
It is not to John Mahama alone. It's to all 8 candidates. He has a large chunk of it, but it's not to him alone.
Okay.
I thought that constitutes the...
Nanado's choose the part of the rest. So let's get to the heart of the matter here. What constitutes a nullity? And it's in law or it's in the electoral regulations. And I know that even in certain constituencies in Ashanti, Brohafo, electoral officers at the constituency level discounted or nullified certain polling stations because there was overvoting.
Right.
So why should there be selective application of the laws of the election? But again, I would attach myself to what Dr. Tubika said, although I'm not a lawyer. I respect the sanctity of our Supreme Court. This is a case in court. Let's go and battle it in court. We will show to the court the irregularities in the 11,000 polling stations and let the court make a decision.
But again, to the point that I made, as far as I know the effect of the amendment, you are asking for a total of over 4 million votes to be declared to be nullified. Out of that over 4 million votes that you are asking to be nullified, 3 million of that is said to have been cast in favor of John Mahama, which the NPP is seeking to nullify.
Not only that, when you say that, you're making a wrong statement. We are seeking to nullify
I'm making
all.
the statement because of the knowledge I have of the amendment
but why
that is being
haven't you
sought.
also added the chunk that goes to Nanado that should be nullified?
So you deduct the over 3 million from the over 4 million that I'm talking about.
Why? No. You are the moderator of the program, please. I think you serve everybody better. When we said 4 million votes should be nullified, it belongs to all the 8.
That
of
is
course, the president has a large chunk.
My brother has said 50% of the show.
Are you sure?
Can I
Okay, let's address our issue.
So you send your case to court. You present your case and make allegations here, asking or saying that you have evidence of over 4,000
4,709
polling stations.
Now 11,000. And now you are being asked to present details. And you are saying those details are your evidence. So so you can't.
What form of details are being asked
of course,
to present?
every polling center that you claim.
So you want the identity?
Personal.
Okay. Personal.
That's right.
This is from a personal spot. If it's just about the identity and the location, I think our people should provide it.
All right.
So I think then you have to
but as for the sheet,
because the
NDC or President Mahama also should have those sheets.
Wonderful.
That's right. So they should have them, but they don't know which sheets they are looking at. So that for me may be a fair request.
And that's exactly the point I want to make, because your lawyers are refusing to present it. That is the issue. They don't want to present.
You have not been clear on what exactly you mean by that.
You see,
maybe you want them to give you the sheets, and that's why they will not.
If it's a sheet, granted it is a sheet. But now you know how the sheet looks like. You cannot duplicate that sheet.
Let me bring in Niyama.
You cannot produce a different sheet other than what has been signed or have been given.
But Nia, I suppose you grant them that because you grant them that because it is between them, and it doesn't affect the CPP, and it doesn't affect the PNC also.
It affects the whole nation. I mean, I think the democracy is all our democracy.
Okay.
We have all been responsible.
Really, the point is that the two parties are not in court. It is the NPP and the NDC that is in court. That's all right.
They have a right to.
So you go
ahead. But I think for us, this is a legal battle. And it's going to involve a lot of legal exchanges between now and the end of whenever this comes. And Dr. Tobiga has said that it is up to the Supreme Court judges. And so if I ask for better particulars, it's not up to you to say you'll give it, you won't give it. Are you required by law under the procedures to give it or not? And I would expect that the Supreme Court judges will rule that, yes, they want better particulars, you have to give it. It's not a matter of you think our lawyers should give it, they shouldn't give it. And so this is going to continue. So when Nana Atudadi says that if you amend, we will also amend. And we can see where this is going. And let's all brace ourselves. It's going to be a long, tedious legal battle where both sides are going to employ every legal maneuver to try and win their case.
When the NPP spoke about how many 4,000 polling stations, the NDC said they were going to call, or John Mohammed's team said they were going to call 4,800 witnesses. Now it's going up to 11,000 plus. Yes. And you hear Nana Tudasi suggest that you then need 11,000 plus witnesses also. But the Supreme Court says they will regulate that because that cannot happen.
Indeed. But
no, they didn't say that. They said it cannot happen.
They said they will regulate that.
Of course, common sense should prevail. We are talking about
common sense should prevail. But I have to say that.
No, but even from where you sit,
right.
So, as a practitioner, you think that it's going to happen to have as many as 12,000 witnesses?
You see, one thing I agree with Ni is that this is a legal battle for our democracy.
No, you can't give a straight answer to this one.
Time should not be the issue. Time should not be the issue.
Time should be.
Please. I'm coming. We are not going to shortcut ourselves and then damage our democracy.
But the rules for the challenge of presidential election petition or election petition dispute generally have been made in such a way that they would encourage speedy trials.
Let me finish my submission.
Let me finish his point.
This is a battle for our democracy.
So if the NPP says they want to amend their petition, they are also seeking to gain the upper hand, because clearly maybe in the 21 days that they had, they could not gather all the evidence. So they've tabled something. Is it right to amend your petition?
Yes, it is.
And they are seeking to amend it. And they may even amend further as we go down the line, because they are wanting to present the evidence that will help them win the case. But the important thing that many Ghanaians are asking is 4,670,000 votes. If you're asking for that to be annulled, are you saying that these votes should not count? Are we going to head for a rerun in those constituencies? Or are we simply saying the election is going to be determined on the basis of 10-point-something million votes less 4.6, so 46%.
That's what the Supreme Court to determine.
Is going to be cast aside. Now, many people are asking, so do you foresee a situation where we rerun the whole election again? We run by-elections in some constituencies? Ghanaians are confused. But they know that it's a legal battle, and they know that all they want is a determination which says one side has won or the other side has won, and then we get on with it. Many people do not understand the minutiae of the daily legal battles. Other than that, it's going to be a battle. And we are all waiting to see what the Supreme Court decides. Because 12,000 polling stations, almost 12,000 polling stations, that is a huge, almost 46% of the polling stations. Are we asking everybody in this country to wait to go through 11,000 witnesses? This case will not finish till the end of the 4 years. You know, whether it's regulated or not, but we'll wait to see. But many Ghanaians are concerned about the nullification bit. Are we seeking to nullify their votes? And I think my brother Kojo made the point that if on the one hand you say that everybody's vote should be counted, and on the other hand, are you saying that all these votes should not be counted?
If the votes were cast without due process, they would be nullified.
4.6 million votes casted in this country without due process.
Well, see, I think there's one problem here. We sitting here, and I don't want to talk on behalf of my lords. We don't understand the word, the generic term, irregularity. Irregularity. What is that? And how does that make the case disputable? What is irregularity, and what kind of irregularity can make the case indisputable? We don't know.
From the petitioner's point of view,
because
we know. From the petitioner's point of view, the irregularities include largely voting without biometric.
Right. But what I'm saying that
overvoting or
this is illegal.
Okay, the question of irregularity must arise from the rules themselves, violation of the rules themselves.
CI 75.
Yeah. Now, if I simply say there were irregularity, I'm simply saying that the rules were violated. Right. But what specific rules were violated is left for the court. And whether or not those rules were actually violated. Because irregularity, in a simple term, could mean major or minor infraction. For example, we have in legal terms the fly and the jar. If a fly drops into the oil jar,
I think if you go that way, we won't finish the program.
Let me say something before.
If you take
there's this text by intervention on the issue of the first issue and the aspect about the president distancing himself from Andrew, and I have kept it for a long time. Let me read it now, and it is coming from Andy Nana Abrakwa Nipaba the second, and he is writing saying, and this is in quote, he's quoting from what he says is from Mohammed's, the president's book, My First Coup d'etat. Now, it says in page 316, you'll find this, quote, U.S. National Book Award winner Andrew Solomon for also providing a gracious advance, quote. Andrew was also quite generous with his referrals and other such literary resources. I will always remember the fantastic dinner party Andrew hosted for me in his Manhattan home that set the ball rolling. John Dramani Mahama, My First Coup d'etat. And he's asking the question, and Ayarga tells us in the face that the president doesn't know him from Absalom. Okay.
That's why I told you I'm worried about their response. But that is an earlier matter that they should deal with, because
we're talking about petition.
Yeah.
This is a text I just read.
Yeah. I think we'll have a little tea before we go.
I think
we have just 3 minutes to go.
The amount is an issue because it materially affects the result of the election. From the 4,000 and even the 11,000 as well, more so. Now, we are talking about, when we talk about irregularities, we are talking about violations of the electoral law. And that is why the categories have been specified very clearly. And I'm saying that even in the course of this election, some electoral officers, returning officers in certain constituencies, nullified results of polling stations because there was overvoting. And we all know the Electoral Commission itself issued a public statement that elections should be suspended and continue the next day because biometric verification machines were not working. So they were going according to the law. So if you are if you are doing that and denying people the right to vote in other constituencies, why should there be areas where people vote without biometric verification? So that is at the heart of the law, and we expect the.
You know what these petitioners are driving towards? It started from 4,000. We are almost at 12,000. We will be hitting 26,000 very soon. Then at the end of the day, the whole constituency, or let's say the whole polling centers that were used were fraudulent. So that is where we are being navigated towards. Trust me, just watch. Keep them.
I think all the elections should be nullified.
I think we are not Supreme Court judges here.
But
no, of course we can see yes, I'm telling you.
Okay.
We will get there very soon.
And 30 seconds.
I think that the beauty of this process, the legal battle, for me, is to determine one, that we can challenge elections, presidential elections. Two, certain issues will be able to decide for us. For the next 100 years, even if Nana loses, he will win a legal battle that will stay in his team, in his 100 years. You will also cite him in the Supreme Court.
Niyama,
and that's good for him.
Niyama, 30 seconds.
Many Ghanaians are simply tired of, because they queued up in the sun for 2 days. And what have we got? The polarization between these two parties is entrenching by the day, and this particular legal case demonstrates it. And some are even advocating that we should have a sort of two-party state. Is this what we want in perpetuity for Ghana?
It is the same number of voters. Is the same number of voters who are asking for their votes to count?
No, what I'm saying is that the country cannot afford this perpetual.
All right, gentlemen, I'm sorry, but we've run out of time. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanini. I've been your host, and my guests have been Dr. Sontim Tobiga. He's a lawyer. He's with the PNC. Kwabena Ejapon is former press secretary to President Kufuor. Niyama Akomfra, communications director of the CPP, and Kojo Eduasare, former MP Adenta constituency. We're joined on the phone lines by John Indebogre, who is also a lawyer and with the NPP. The show has been produced with the executive producership of Sedem Ofori. Thank you very much. The news is next.